All right, good morning, Year 8. Now, this video is just going to quickly go through what we do at GCSE in history. Now, this video is obviously quite an important one because history is going to be one of your EBAC choices. So you have to make a choice. And I want you to understand from this video today why we've chosen our subjects, what we study, and obviously how you're going to be examined over the 3 years of doing GCSE history. So they're the three teachers that will be delivering GCSE history. So you've got myself, Mr. Rochester, Mr. Simpson, and Mrs. Matthews. So why study history? Now, we are one of the most popular option choices. Currently, we have 13 classes at GCSE. We have over 100 students in each year group. Our results are above national average with an increasing pass rate year on year, which is over 80%. In history, you can learn skills that actually can be used in so many of your other subjects. So it's a cross-curricular subject. The skills you learn, so like literacy, hugely literacy based, inference, trying to work out something based on a picture or a written piece of text, analysis, saying how one thing is more important than another, problem solving, getting to the bottom of how something happened. And numeracy, believe it or not, is also a key thing with history because we have to look at dates, we have to look at time periods, we have to look at centuries. And that's something, a very subtle numeracy, but it's still there. The subjects we've chosen for you to study are fun, they're engaging, and they give you a well-rounded understanding of a huge range of subjects. So we've not just shown, the GCSE that we choose that is by EdXL give you an option, give you subjects from medieval England all the way through to modern history. Our staff are exam markers and our lessons are based around engagement, interest, and a range of tasks, which means every lesson is different. Now, this gives you a thirst to learn. Okay, and it is quite important that you understand that at GCSE, even though it's an exam years, we want to make sure that you enjoy it. We want to make sure that you go away with as many skills as possible. Now, this is another big positive for the GCSE. Throughout years 7 and 8, we've done every type of question that you would do at GCSE. So there's no nasty surprises. So the explain questions, the how far do you agree questions, they make up the biggest bulk of the GCSE. So you know the skills already. It's just a case of making sure that in year 9, 10, and 11, we build those skills up to make sure that you are a well-rounded historian ready for those big exams in year 11. And also we have trips. Now, obviously, when times get a little bit easier, we will continue to run trips. So in year 9, we go to Thackeray Medical Museum. In year 10, we go to Lincoln Castle and we have an American West Day in school. In year 11, we are looking at the Imperial War Museum, including the Holocaust Memorial section. But obviously, trips will happen when things get back to normal. If they don't happen next year, then we will backdate the trips to make sure that you get the same experience that other people have got in the past. So what do we study? Now, it's broken down into 3 papers. The first paper is Medicine Through Time, 1250 to present, and World War I trench warfare and medicine. They're 2 separate topics. Medicine's worth 20%, World War I trenches and medicine's worth 10%. And it comes together as a 1 hour and 15-minute paper where there's 6 questions. The question types never change. So question 1 will always be describe 2 features of something. Question 2A will be looking at how useful sources are. Now, for the medicine paper, I want you just to have a think about, have you ever wondered how medicine's developed? Now, this is one of the most popular courses in Britain. We look at things like, why was God blamed for illness? Why did we used to use leeches to treat ourselves? How did people survive some of the worst illnesses in history? How did people survive having amputations while they were awake? How's the government changed medicine over time? How has vaccinations become a way of saving lives? And how did things like modern antibiotics happen, things like penicillin? Obviously, there's a lot more to the course, but we look at some of the most important individuals in history: Galen, Hippocrates, William Harvey, Andreas Vesalius, James Simpson, Joseph Lister. We look at what they did and what impact they had. The World War I trenches in medicine, we look at, it's very similar to what you've looked at in year 8. What illnesses did people have in the trenches? How did surgery happen in the trenches? How did the soldiers overcome illnesses due to the war? And how did surgery develop because of the war? So we look at very similar what we've looked at in year 8, but we take it one step further and we looked at how surgery develops a little bit further in this time period. But paper 2 is broken down into 2 different papers, and they're 2 very different papers, and these have turned out to be a very popular combination for our current students. So we first look at the reigns of King Richard I and King John, 1189 to 1216, 2 of the most famous kings in British history. One of them, you might remember, was in Robin Hood. So the lion in Robin Hood is actually Prince John, and he's the guy that becomes king later on and basically destroys England. So the reign, both of these papers are 20%. They have the same questions. Okay, some of the types of questions are actually repeated over all the papers, so it becomes very easy for you to understand how to answer questions. Okay, Richard and John's worth 20%. It's 3 questions. So, and an American West is again 20%, and it's 4 questions. So what do we look at in each one? So we look at how Richard tried to capture Jerusalem from Muslims. You'll understand how important being a Christian was in the medieval times, and how kings went to war to fight for their country, very different to our monarchy today. How did King John seemingly destroy England? Okay, a lot of people say King John was bad, or we're going to look at why. We're going to look at how he turned England against him. And how did medieval England run? So how did society run in medieval England? And we look at some comparisons to how it's different to today. With the American West, this is possibly one of the most engaging topics because it's something in history that historians don't talk about. We basically look at the destruction of the Native American tribes of America. Now, the film that you might know that I think is comparable, Pocahontas. We look at how the Native American people were basically destroyed. So how did they survive in the first place? We look at how they survived before America became America. We look at how the growth of America destroyed their way of life. We look at law and order. So we look at cowboys versus Indians. We look at how cowboys caused lots of problems in America. So like people like Billy the Kid. We look at how the US government destroyed the lives of Native American people by putting them something called a reservation. Now, a lot of historians have started to compare the killing of Native American people to events like the Holocaust. So it is a very difficult and sensitive subject, but it's very interesting. It does have lots of films and it has lots of documentaries. So that's paper 2. And paper 3 is Weimar and Nazi Germany, 1919 to 1939. 30% of your GCSE. The thing about this paper that the students always like, half of the questions of this paper are skill-based and you need no knowledge whatsoever. Okay, so you can actually get a grade 2 in this paper, but obviously that's not what we're aiming for. Okay, this is probably one of the best papers that we always achieve on. Okay, way above national average. So we look at how Germany survived the loss of World War I, what problems the new government went through after World War I. So uprisings, hyperinflation. We look at how the Nazi Party grow and managed to take power. We look at how Hitler makes himself one of the most feared dictators in history. We look at what life was like in Nazi Germany for women, children, and minorities. And then we look at the end of the course at how World War II had an impact on Hitler's reign of terror. Again, we do look at Nazi Germany in year 8. So it's something that does cross over, which makes it easier to transition when you do it in years 9 to 11. Now, something I hear all the time, why would I do history? It's just the past, it's boring. Well, actually, every person on this board has done history, okay? Now, there's some people you won't know, but some people you will, okay? Louis Theroux, Prince Charles, Steve Carell, Shakira, Sacha Baron Cohen. And the thing is, year 8, the past is more relevant than ever before, okay? And this is the magic of history is it can take you in most directions that you want. So you can go into things like journalism, law, social work, teaching, museum and heritage work, management, media and TV. Some of the skills you learn in history will put you, there's a lot of members of parliament have done history, okay? A lot of actors, a lot of singers, okay? Because of the skills you learn. So like, for example, even acting, Steve Carell, how would history help him become a good actor? Because he remembers a lot. Okay. There's lots of people here that you might not have expected did history, and they all do, and they all did. So this is the magic of history. History's not boring. It doesn't just teach us about the past, and the times that we're living in today, the past is more relevant than ever before. We learn about teaching sort of empathy as well, to make sure that you know the rights and wrongs of history. We look at to celebrating some of the most important people in history. The career paths are massive. You can go on, obviously, take it at A level, and most top universities think that, well, see history as a facilitating subject. So if you've got history at GCSE and A level, universities definitely look positively at it. Likewise, so do employers. They look very positively at it as well, because of the amount of skills that you learn with history in itself. So what I want to say to you today is choose history and prepare for a very fun, but also more importantly, year 8, a very successful 3 years where you have 3 members of staff that will do everything they can to make sure you succeed at the very top of your game. Thank you for listening, and we will see you in year 9.